What's up, your boy Vaughn? Another reaction. Today's video we have how Pharrell changed fashion forever by Chance Dubnik. Make sure like, comment, subscribe. Let's get into it.
Fashion icons. Luxury brands didn't take streetwear seriously, and skaters didn't influence runway culture. Nobody was mixing hip-hop, Japanese fashion, high-end luxury, and skateboarding all into the same identity. Then a man named Pharrell Williams came along and quietly changed it all forever. This is
Niggas be hating on Pharrell at LV saying, "Oh man, LV need to fire that nigga. What the hell is he doing? Y'all don't like some of the Pharrell LV collection? Y'all like some of the shit? So
the
this shit
story
hard
of
that
how
he making."
one man single-handedly rewired what modern fashion looks like. So, Pharrell Williams was born on April 5th, 1973 in Virginia Beach, Virginia. Long before runway shows, diamond chains, and Billionaire Boys Club, he was a quiet kid obsessed with music, art, skateboarding, and design, which also made him feel completely different from most hip-hop at the time. You see, in the 80s and 90s, rap had a very specific image tied to it. It was oversized jerseys, baggy jeans, Timberlands, and everything was built around that New York hustle culture and lifestyle. And Pharrell never really fit into that world. He was a skateboard kid from Virginia, he was soft-spoken, colorful, and more experimental with his outfits. But ironically, that is exactly
Pharrell got some trash fits now. He got some bullshit fits.
what would make him influential later on. After high school, Pharrell and his longtime friend that he met in band class, Chad Hugo, were discovered by a legendary producer named Teddy Riley, the same producer that actually worked with Michael Jackson. And together, Pharrell and Chad Hugo formed the Neptunes. And by the early 2000s, they were producing what felt like half of the music industry. Nelly, Snoop Dogg, Justin Timberlake, Britney Spears, and Jay-Z were just a few of the names that they produced for. And to put it short, the Neptunes weren't just successful producers, they literally defined a sound for an entire era.
The song was already done, maybe just a beat.
By 2003, Pharrell and the Neptunes were reportedly behind 43% of all the songs played on the US radio, which honestly is one of the craziest statistics I've ever heard. But while most people were focused on their music, another cultural shift was quietly happening in the background. People started noticing the way that Pharrell dressed. Something that he always felt like an outcast or was different in the past, that was what made him unique now. Pharrell wore more bright colors, while hip-hop was more muted and oversized. He wore skateboarding t-shirts, but also luxury fashion before anybody else was doing this. And eventually, that curiosity about fashion would lead him to a spontaneous meeting that would go on to change fashion forever. In 2003, Pharrell was introduced to a Japanese designer named Nigo through one of his friends, Jacob the Jeweler. At the time, Jacob the Jeweler's store was like a celebrity clubhouse. Rappers, athletes, musicians, everybody passed through.
I still want that Jacob and Cole, that Bugatti watch. That bitch hard. Or I like, yeah, the Bugatti watch. That's his best watch in my opinion. That Bugatti watch or that fucking. I like the little casino one. No, the roulette watch with the roulette.
There eventually. And when it comes to Pharrell's jewelry, and especially his chains, Jacob the Jeweler was the one that made almost all of these. Things like his Tech Deck chain, his iced out Oakley sunglasses, or his completely gold BlackBerry phone, or even his 14 karat gold Sony PSP. And the story goes that Jacob the Jeweler had this high-end client out in Tokyo, and this client was absolutely obsessed with American hip-hop culture. And Jacob the Jeweler noticed that every time Pharrell got a new chain made, his client in Tokyo would want the exact same thing made, but for him. And that man was Nigo, the owner of Bathing Ape. Nigo was so obsessed with American hip-hop culture that he wanted to look and dress exactly like Pharrell Williams. And keep in mind, this was before the two had even met. So one day in 2003, when Pharrell was in Japan for a video shoot, Jacob the Jeweler told him that he had to meet this client, Nigo. And as soon as they met, they pretty much hit it off. Pharrell became obsessed with the brand Bathing Ape and how Nigo was running it. You see, anybody can have a clothing brand where they just slap a logo on a t-shirt and sell it. You see, Nigo would only make about 50 pieces, and he would give away half of them to the coolest people that he could find around Tokyo. The brand was always sold out, and only the coolest people were wearing it on the streets. Pharrell realized that the lifestyle was more important than the brand itself. But at this time, outside of Tokyo, pretty much nobody in the US knew what Bathing Ape was. And Pharrell was completely obsessed. The colors, the graphics, the exclusivity, it felt completely different from any American fashion at the time. And once Pharrell brought it back to the United States and started wearing
That babe's still hard.
it publicly, everything changed. He wore Bathing Ape in multiple different music videos, on red carpets, and magazine shoots. And almost overnight, the brand transformed from a niche Tokyo streetwear label into a global status symbol. And everybody wanted in. People like Lil Wayne, Kanye West, and Soulja Boy were some of the first people in the United States to really popularize this with the hip-hop culture. Bape became one of the first true hype brands in America, and that was all thanks to Pharrell and Nigo. But in 2005, just 2 years after they met, Pharrell and Nigo decided to take their ideas even further. Together, they launched a brand called Billionaire Boys Club and Ice Cream. And to be honest with you, fashion and hip-hop didn't really know what to do with this brand at first. The clothes were preppy and also extremely loud. Bright colors, cartoon graphics, polo t-shirts, skate decks, and luxury mixed with streetwear. And this new preppy aesthetic went against everything that hip-hop looked like at the time. You gotta think, this was coming off the whole gangster rap era where everybody was wearing big huge chains and super oversized white tees, Timberland boots, and then you have people like Pharrell wearing like preppy clothes. Pharrell completely rejected the original formula and made his own. He made it cool to look artistic, colorful, and different. And more importantly, he made fashion feel playful again. But what made Billionaire Boys Club different wasn't just the clothing. It was the philosophy behind it. And straight off the Billionaire Boys Club website, its core philosophy focuses on originality, authentic self-expression, and the idea that true wealth lies in humanity, compassion, creativity.
Let's talk about how this nigga Pharrell still look the same. That nigga Pharrell be taking that adrenochrome facts.
And curiosity rather than just financial status. Pharrell treated streetwear like luxury brands did handbags and watches. Limited quantities, exclusive releases, and hard-to-find pieces. It was like, if you knew, you knew. And today that sounds normal, but in the mid-2000s, this mindset completely changed how young people viewed clothing. Suddenly, fashion wasn't just something that you wore, it was something that you collected. Something that you hunted online for or stood in a line outside the store for, and something that gave you identity. And you can trace a direct line from Billionaire Boys Club to a few other brands that we've seen in pop culture. If you look at Kanye West's Pastel and Mascot line, these were his very first two brands before his Yeezy brand. They were heavily
I do need a pastel jacket, even though nigga on me I think Bruce got a real pastel jacket. I think Bruce got the real one, like, but I don't know. I know it's not a lot of them that was me because the brand never really became a real thing.
Billionaire Boys Club. They're preppy, colorful, like this was Kanye West's entire aesthetic. Another more recent example in the late 2000s.
But I know niggas make like fake ones, well, off-brand ones.
Is Tyler the Creator and his brand Golf Wang or Golf the Floor. Tyler the Creator has heavily credited Pharrell as one of his biggest creative, musical, and fashion inspirations. And if you look at Billionaire Boys Club and Golf the Floor, they're very, very similar. And this was all thanks to Pharrell Williams. But one of the most important parts of Pharrell's influence actually came from skate culture. Because before Pharrell, skateboarding and hip-hop didn't really overlap the way that they do now. Skate culture was still seen as underground in the early 2000s. But Pharrell loved it. The music, the graphics, the freedom, and the individuality around skateboarding. And instead of hiding that influence, he pushed it into his entire identity. His nickname was literally Skateboard Pete. And even the ice cream sneakers looked different than anything else that hip-hop had seen at the time. And you gotta think, while the entire sneaker world was dominated by basketball shoes, Michael Jordans, and Kobe's, Pharrell leaned into bright colors, slim silhouettes, and skate-inspired designs. And he even went as far as hiring his own skate team. And in skate culture, this was absurd. If you look at some of these old photo shoots, skaters like Terry Kennedy was looking more like a rapper than a skater. This was like the first time that skate culture had ever seen skaters with like gold chains and colorful logos and stuff like like that. At the time, skaters were not making money like that. And also at the same time, Pharrell's ice cream sneakers were made in collaboration with Reebok. And Pharrell proved that you didn't need Nike or Jumpman to make a hit shoe. And during this time, rappers and celebrities could not get enough of Billionaire Boys Club. People like Snoop Dogg, Lil Wayne, Kid Cudi, Big Sean, Chris Brown, everybody was wearing Billionaire Boys Club or ice cream. And you had Billionaire Boys Club, which was like a preppy version of Bathing Ape, or you had the ice cream side that was like skate culture and grunge mixed with like bright, loud colors. Pharrell's brand literally changed hip-hop fashion forever. And slowly, the luxury fashion side started to notice too. And this was a huge shift at the time, because before the early 2000s, most luxury brands didn't want anything to do with hip-hop culture. Rappers wore luxury fashion, but luxury fashion rarely embraced the rappers back. And Pharrell was the person that made that change. By 2008, Pharrell collaborated with Louis Vuitton alongside designer Marc Jacobs. And a lot of people don't know this, but it was a jewelry collection that he launched with Louis Vuitton in 2008. But also at the same time, Pharrell became a regular at Paris Fashion Week. And this mattered more than people really realized. Pharrell wasn't entering these spaces as a celebrity endorsement or an athlete. The fashion community genuinely respected his taste. And in this exact moment, he wasn't just wearing the culture anymore, he was helping reshape it. And by the 2010s, Pharrell's influence was almost everywhere. And the craziest part was, a lot of people didn't realize that they were dressing inside the world that he helped create. Mixing luxury and streetwear, rappers becoming designers, fashion collaborations, and sneaker culture becoming global. And Pharrell helped normalize all of this. Artists like Kanye West, Virgil Abloh, and Tyler the Creator would all go and push those ideas even further. But Pharrell was one of the first people to truly blur those lines. And by the mid-2010s, Pharrell had already evolved from a music producer into a full-blown cultural architect. In 2014, he partnered with Adidas and introduced the world of human race sneakers. And just like Bape, years earlier, these became a status symbol. I mean, if you knew anything about sneakers in 2014 to 2016...
I remember these, but those ass. I remember a lot of niggas wearing these, though. But these ass.
You knew what the human races were. During this era, Yeezy 350s and human race shoes literally dominated the entire world, and some of these sneakers were going for
going crazy. I ain't like them Yeezys neither, but people was going crazy for them shit.
Thousands and thousands of dollars. But Pharrell's collaborations always felt bigger than just the products. It seemed like they all carried ideas, optimism, creativity, and individuality. It was like even when trends changed and what was cool in like the fashion or streetwear world, Pharrell never changed. He always did what he wanted to do. But somehow at the same time, he always stayed slightly ahead of the trends. But in 2023 is when the story finally came full circle. Pharrell Williams was named as the men's creative director of Louis Vuitton. And in a way, this almost felt impossible. The quiet kid in band class from Virginia Beach.
A lot of people were saying they should have gave it to Tyler. Tyler's collection was I ain't gonna lie, that was during this Pharrell 10-year, this Pharrell at Louis Vuitton, that Tyler the Creator collection was his best work. That whole collection hard. I need some of that shit when I get some money. When I get rich, I need that collection. I ain't gonna lie.
Once looked like completely out of place in the hip-hop fashion world, was now leading the biggest luxury brand on earth. But also at the same time, somehow it made perfect sense. By then, modern fashion had already looked like the world Pharrell imagined decades earlier. Streetwear and luxury had merged, and musicians became creative directors, and sneakers became collectibles, and personal style became more important than fitting in. And with Louis Vuitton, Pharrell did something that only felt right. He enlisted the legendary streetwear designer Nigo, or his best friend, to co-design a massive, highly anticipated collaboration for Louis Vuitton for fall/winter 2025. He brought
that shit hard.
the same man that he met in 2003 in Japan all the way up with him through Billionaire Boys Club to Louis Vuitton. Now, that's not to discredit everything that Nigo's done on his own, but for Pharrell, this was big. But it goes to show that the future that Pharrell Williams saw in the early 2000s eventually became reality. And whether people realize it or not, a huge part in modern fashion still exists inside the blueprint that he created. And that pretty much wraps up today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Now, I want to say thank you guys again for the support on the last few videos. You guys have been showing so much love.
Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and I'm out with deuces.